Well, hello everybody and welcome to Jeff's Baking Blog. Today I'm going to make a mincemeat Bakewell Tart. So this is going to be a lovely pastry case which is going to be filled with an almond frangipane, and in between the frangipane and the pastry crust is going to be some sweet mincemeat, because I have quite a lot left over from Christmas and I want to get it used. And I like sort of Bakewell Tart in any form basically, so I thought this would be a good idea, good way to use up the excess mincemeat. So it's a simple recipe, as all these tarts tend to be, but there are a few steps. You have to make the pastry, blind bake it, then you have to make the filling and assemble the pie and then bake it again. So it'll take a bit of time because I'm going to chill the pastry twice for at least an hour each time, but it will be very rewarding as a very lovely dessert afterwards. So I'll go on to the ingredients, and for the pastry I have 225 grams, which is 1.5 cups, based on scooping packed flour into a 250 milliliter cup. I have 87 grams, 7 tablespoons of icing sugar. I have 113 grams, 1 stick of cold unsalted butter, which I've cut into little chunks. I have 3 medium egg yolks, that would be large in the USA, and I'm going to beat those before I use them. I have a pinch of salt, and then I have an additional egg to brush over the pastry during the blind baking process. And then for the filling I have 150 grams, which is 6 tablespoons of mincemeat. But of course you could use raspberry jam, you could use strawberry jam, lemon curd, you can use whatever you want basically, but I'm using mincemeat. Then I have 150 grams, 1.5 cups of ground almonds, 38 grams, 1/4 cup of plain flour, again based on scooping packed flour into a 250 milliliter cup. I have 2 medium eggs, large in the USA, 2 grams, 1/2 teaspoon of baking powder, 3 grams, 1/2 teaspoon of salt, 2.5 milliliters, which is 1/2 teaspoon of almond extract. If you don't have almond extract, you can leave it out. You could add a little bit of lemon extract or some vanilla extract if you wanted to. And I have 125 grams of softened unsalted butter, which is 1 cup plus 1 tablespoon. And then another 125 grams, 1/2 cup plus 2 tablespoons of caster sugar. So that's all the ingredients. And the first thing we need to do is to make our pastry and get that chilling in the fridge. And to make the pastry I'm going to use the processor bowl of my immersion blender, and I'm going to put my flour in and my icing sugar, along with my pinch of salt and the cold butter. And then I'm going to pulse them until the mixture resembles fine breadcrumbs. So that's pulsed quite nicely, as you can see. So I'm going to pour in my egg yolk, and I'm going to hold a little bit back because I may not need all of it. But I'm just going to pour that in and process it until it starts to clump together. So that's beginning to clump together. I can see that. So I'm going to tip that out into a bowl, and I'm then going to use my hand to squeeze it into a dough. So I've tipped that out. I'm just going to squeeze that, and as you can see, it very easily comes into a dough. And then I'm going to form that into a ball and then flatten it into a disc. Like that. And I'm going to wrap that up in some plastic wrap, and I'm going to chill it for at least an hour. And then after an hour I'll come back and we'll roll it out to blind bake it. I've chilled my pastry for an hour, and I've now put it onto the work surface which I have floured, and I've floured the top as well. And I'm going to roll this out to a thickness of about 5 millimeters, about 1/4 of an inch, and it has to be large enough to fill a 23 centimeter 9-inch tart tin. Mine has a removable base, but just to be safe, it's non-stick, but just to be safe I've put some parchment paper in the bottom as well. It shouldn't, with this pastry and the non-stick, it shouldn't stick, but I like to be absolutely sure. So I roll this out probably to about 13 inches in diameter if I can. And I think that's about good enough. So I'm going to try to roll that up carefully on my rolling pin. And I'm going to place it into the tart tin and just ease it down the sides. And then press it in against the side. And I want to leave just a little bit of an overhang, but I will trim off the excess pastry. And with that quite nicely lining the pan, I'm going to take a fork and I'm going to dock it all over the base. Like that, and then I'm going to chill that again in the fridge, covering it with my plastic wrap again, and I'm going to chill it for another hour. And as that's chilling, I'll preheat my oven to 190 degrees Celsius, 170 Celsius with a fan, 375 Fahrenheit, and then when the oven's preheated I'll come back and we'll put the parchment paper in, the beans in, and we'll blind bake this. So it's been an hour and my pastry case has been chilling in the fridge quite nicely. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cover that with some parchment paper, which I have crinkled up to make it easier to shape into the pastry. And then I'm going to pour in my ceramic baking beans. Now if you don't have ceramic baking beans, you can use some rice or some dried beans or some pasta, Of course, having used it, you can't then use that for cooking. You need to save them and use them again for baking, like this. But I'll just put my beans in, and then with my oven preheated, I'm going to bake this, and I'm going to bake it for 15 minutes. And after 15 minutes, I'll take it out of the oven, remove the beans and the parchment paper, and I'll come back and show you that we brush it with egg, and then we bake it for a further 5 to 10 minutes until that egg has created a nice moisture-proof seal on the pastry. So I blind baked the pastry for 15 minutes. I've taken it out of the oven, and it's now time to brush the egg over the top. So I've beaten my egg. I'm simply going to brush the entire surface with egg. And I'm going to put that back into the oven, and I'm going to bake it for, I think I'll probably bake it for another 10 minutes so that I can be sure that the base is fully cooked. It's not cooked yet, and the egg will soften it, but I'll bake it for 10 minutes. I take it out of the oven and allow it to cool down, and as it cools down, I'll come back and we'll make our filling to go in the centre. So I've baked my pastry for another 8 minutes, and I've now reduced the oven temperature to 180 degrees Celsius, 160 Celsius with a fan, 350 Fahrenheit. And what I did was I've just taken a sharp knife and I've run it around the edge to trim off the excess pastry that I left on there. So that's ready, and I'm just going to set that aside now and leave it to cool just for as long as it takes to make the filling. So to make the filling, I'm going to cream the butter and the sugar with my hand mixer. You can do it by hand. This is not a recipe that needs an awful lot of mixing, but I'm going to do it with my hand mixer just for ease. So I just whisk these until they're fully creamed. And then I'm going to pour in my half a teaspoon of almond extract, and I'm going to add the eggs one at a time. So I'll add one in, whisk it to combine, then do the same with the other one. And that's good like that. So then I'll just put those to one side for a moment. I'll take my flour and put the salt in and the baking powder, and I'll mix those together. And then I'm going to tip those into the ground almonds. And just mix those as well. And then it can all go into our wet mixture. Like that. And I'm going to mix it on a low speed until it's combined. And that's fully combined. So I'll just set that to one side for a moment, and I'll take the pastry case and my mincemeat, and I'll just drop the mincemeat over the pastry case, and then I'm going to spread it around. This is not as loose as jam. If you have jam, it spreads much easier. And you can use as much or as little as you want, basically. But I just want to ensure I get a fairly nice covering of all that lovely fruit. So I've covered that, and I decided I needed just a little bit more, so I added another tablespoon in, so 7 tablespoons, probably 175 grams. So then I'm going to take my almond mixture and I'm going to spoon that over and then spread that around. So I'm just going to gently spread that and ease it across the base until it's nice and level. And I think that's fairly level. So then I'm just going to take a few flaked almonds and sprinkle those over. And I think that's good enough like that. So then I'm going to put that into the oven and I'm going to bake it for 40 minutes. And it should colour nicely on the top. If the pastry around the edge seems to be browning too much, I'll simply put some foil around the edge to stop it from browning further. And then after 40 minutes I'm going to take it out of the oven. It should feel firm to the touch on the top, and then I'm going to leave it to cool down. Now you can serve this warm, but I prefer to let it cool down completely, and then once it has done that, I'll come back and show you the results. I baked the Mincemeat Bakewell Tart for 40 minutes and I covered it with some foil around the edges, just to stop the pastry from browning any further. In fact, I made a little dint in the top when I did that, which was irritating, but it worked out fine, it's okay. So it baked up quite nicely and I've allowed it to cool down. It's still just a little bit warm, but I've cut a slice of it. So this is what it looks like. And I've just sprinkled a little bit of icing sugar on the top as well. And here's the slice which I've cut. So I'll have a taste of this piece. Very, very good. You get the fruitiness and the little bit of spice from the mincemeat and the lovely soft texture of the Frangipane. Then the crispness but sort of crumbliness of the pastry, and then a little bite into the almonds on the top as well. So it's very, very good. This is perfect to be served as a dessert with some custard or some ice cream or something like that, but it can also be eaten just by itself as a snack. So it's also a very good way of using up things which you have left. If you've got a jar of mincemeat in the cupboard that's going to expire before next Christmas, just make this and use it up. It's easy as that. Same with other things, like you can use raspberry jam, strawberry jam, blueberry, whatever you want, lemon curd, and make a very, very nice dessert. So that's going to be it for this recipe. I hope you've enjoyed it, and if you have, please give me the thumbs up below and click to subscribe to my YouTube channel. In the top right hand corner of the screen there'll be an eye that you can click on, and that will take you to a link for the recipe, and I'll put a link below the video as well. And I'll be back with another recipe in the very near future. So until then, happy baking.